Do you know what a 45-foot silver screen with millions of speakers does to your film that you cut in Adobe Premiere? Everyone in the theater is going to see every pixel on that screen, and they're also going to hear every single sound effect, clip, blip, blub, and non-crossfaded piece of audio that you missed on your timeline. That night, I was naked, and I was afraid. What is up? Welcome back to Shut Up and Cut. Thank you everyone who has been following along with the pre-launch so far. It's been a long, windy road for Shut Up and Cut, and the fact that some of you are still here and watching and are actually into this kind of stuff blows my mind. So a genuine thank you is in order, but today is not a very tangible tutorial, meaning it's not about the software, it's not really about the technical either. It has more to do with how you think. And as a creative, it's our minds that stop us from taking those next steps. And so today I want to share with you my story and the way I used to think. So here's the story. 2017, I was a young and starry-eyed high school graduate and wanted to try something new. Filmmaking. I realized that the only real filmmaking experience I had was editing family videos and the news packages that played on the high school news.
I'm Joey DeBlanco for HBN News.
After seeing Captain America Civil War for like the 11th time that summer, I begged my parents to send me to film school. Cut to freshman year of college, I was told that at the end of every year, a film festival is put on by the university. The festival is held in an actual movie theater, and the idea of having my work played in a movie theater was freaking amazing. Immediately, my starry eyes narrowed down into lasers. I made the decision that I wanted my work to be played in a theater every single freaking year. The only way to be a part of this festival, you needed to have crewed, directed, or have some way been a part of the film that got accepted into the festival. My first thought was to just work on every single production that was going on. That way, no matter what film was accepted, I had a reason to be there. So I went around school asking to be in people's films, but for some odd reason, everyone wanted a sound designer. And sound scared the living shit out of me, so I turned them all down, which was my first mistake, was not recognizing the opportunity. But I immediately started writing my own films with a couple of friends that I made in the process. Overall, I made 2 films. One of them was called Color of Kindness. It was about a girl who shares her kindness by giving her color to a black and white world. And the other was called Face to Face, where a boy and a girl throw notes to each other using paper airplanes. I know, nothing like Captain America. But I cut both of these films, and I lousied my way through sound design, not really paying attention to what I was doing. I would use my pen tool to pump parts of the music that I thought were cool and duck parts of the music that weren't cool. Honestly, I let the music drive 99% of the film. I didn't really care because I really didn't know any better, and I just wanted to get them done and submitted. I finished all the films right in time to enter them into the festival, and to my surprise, both of my films got in. My freshman films were going to be played on the silver screen as a freshman in college. My ego blasted off to space, which was mistake number 2, not really being humble. But do you know what a 45-foot silver screen with 1 million frickin' speakers does to your video? A movie theater does not just enhance the viewing experience of your movie. A movie theater completely exposes your competence as a filmmaker to everyone. That night, I was naked and I was afraid. My films shattered the eardrums of every person in that room. I specifically remember increasing the volume of a certain part of the sound bed because I thought it'd be cinematic. Well, that part turned out to be more penetrating than cinematic. And it wasn't just loud, it was high-pitched. I've always stood by my work, good or bad, but that was the only moment in my life I sank into my seat. I didn't want anybody to know that I had worked on it. And that was mistake number 3, which was not standing by my art. Now, I don't know why my film got accepted, but I'm pretty sure it was to teach me a lesson, and it hurt. Oh, I get cringy just talking about it again. And so now freshman year was over. I decided to go again because honestly at that time the festival was the only place I learned anything about filmmaking all year. So that summer I wrote and shot an action film that I planned on editing during the school year to submit to the festival. So come the school year, I was gonna find a sound designer. And out of the blue, one actually popped up. We'll call him the sound guy. And I heard that this sound guy designed 4 of the films that were in the festival last year. I only got 2 films in last year, and this guy got 4. Needless to say, he was my hero. This was the guy I wanted to sound design my film, or so I thought. Out of the 14 or 15 productions going on that year, he took on like half of them. This guy was top tier. I sent him a DM anyway, hoping he would work on mine, and he accepted. But then he dropped it. He said he didn't agree with the film's thematic premise. My film was about a newcomer being thrown into a murderous fighting pit in hopes to overthrow the regime by taking out its leader. So yeah, he didn't agree with that. Whatever. I was heartbroken and defeated once again, which was mistake number 4, caring about what people think. But But at that moment, I figured the best way to find a sound designer would be to get my ass on some projects and start talking to people. And the easiest way to do that was to accept whatever position was open. And once again, the position that was open was sound designer. I still didn't know how to do sound design, but I thought, hey, if I do accept the sound design projects and I suck, at least I'll learn at the expense of other people's films and not mine. And that was enough reason for me to, as the saying goes, burn my boats. So when the opportunity presented itself, I took it. 4 times. 4 people asked me to sound design, and I said yes to all of those people. And I promised every single director that I would finish their film and submit it to the festival at the end of the year. On top of that, I crewed out and acted in like 6 more films just in case the 4 films I was working on didn't get in. My boats were absolutely burnt and demolished. But word got around that I was a sound designer because I simply said that I was a sound designer to 4 people. Well, a friend of mine had her project dropped last minute by her editor and sound designer. She had somehow successfully guilted me into taking on her project. And overall, I ended up being a part of like 11 or 12 productions that year, including my own film. It was on those sets that I finally met my Obi-Wan Kenobi, the boom op / sound mixer on set. He was the closest I could get to anyone who knew anything about sound. And it turns out it was more than enough. He answered everything I could possibly think of: workflow, EQ, mixing, leveling. He was smart enough, and more importantly, he was kind enough to share all of his knowledge with me. And I asked every question I could think of, even if I sounded stupid. And I don't think I cared if I sounded stupid, just because I was really focused on the information. Point is, he was very kind and more than happy to share some knowledge. And after being on a couple of projects with him and absorbing everything that he said, I asked him to sound design for my project. He said he wasn't even a student. He had already graduated and had been working professionally for a couple of years. He just loves to share his knowledge and talk about what he loves. So he respectfully declined and wished me best of luck. So my Obi-Wan, if you are listening, thank you. What's funny is that I actually didn't really use a lot of the knowledge that he shared with me. Just the fact of me sitting there and listening to him talk about it gave me the confidence to implement and do the things with sound that I've never done. And like I said, out of the billion things we talked about, I probably implemented like 2 of them. But what's funny is that when I started implementing things like equalizing or compression or whatever they were, I would find myself implementing those same things on other projects. I would implement a technique I learned on one project and then re-replicate that technique or skill or trick on all the other projects. I was doing like 5 to 6 reps with just one sound design skill. I would literally go back and forth between projects inside of Premiere, and I was literally learning as I was editing. And so with every project built on top of one another, by the time I got to my personal project, the one that mattered, I had already run the gauntlet on a bunch of different projects. All of these skills and techniques that I had learned from the other projects were so deeply ingrained in my brain that I just naturally started using them on my own. And because of that, I developed my own sound design system that I use for every project. But the point is that the repetition is what taught me in this scenario. I ended up finishing every project I was editing, designing, and not a single one went unfinished. Now, the festival was accepting only 10 films that year, and out of the 11 or 12 projects I submitted, 9 of them were accepted and nominated, including my own. So after 365 days, I was back in the same theater, in the same chairs, with the same butterflies in my stomach, but this time, my ego and my expectations were in check. But I was kind of curious to see how the sound guy's work looked on screen. The one who told me that he didn't agree with the premise of my movie, yeah, that guy. I was still thinking about him. I assumed he was one of the top guys in the festival again since he got so many in last year, so I was pretty curious to see what he did. Turns out, the sound guy who dropped my film also dropped all of his other films that he agreed to work on, including that 6th project that I picked up. All of his directors weren't even able to submit their films. But not my 6th director. Our film didn't get in, but it got submitted, which is what I said I would do. And that was mistake number 5, was finishing what you start. It wasn't my mistake, but I decided to steal this mistake from our beloved sound guy, so thank you to my almost potential Obi-Wan. But after watching all of the films, honestly, I was just so grateful that no one had their ears blown out. Nothing clipped, nothing sounded like shit. All of the films were semi-decent that year. I don't think I would have grown as much as I did had I not taken on and finished all of those projects and learned from my mistakes. And every time you do another rep or learn another skill, you get stronger and faster and just overall better at your craft. And so when you think like that and grow your skill set like that, your confidence as a video editor or a creative in general just comes naturally. Moral of the story, I made a lot of mistakes, and I used to beat myself up for making these mistakes. But the reality is, time goes on, and over time, you can either keep talking shit, or you can use your mistakes as points of leverage or as points of data that you can learn from. And from then on, whenever I make a mistake, I try to find the lesson. What can I learn from it? What could I have done better? And it took me a while to make that shift in my head, but once I was able to shut that voice up and start doing work, it led to some pretty cool shit.
and that's number 4.
And to my surprise that night, I ended up with 9 nominations, 4 awards, which were Best Overall Picture, Best Ensemble Acting, Best Editing, and the most rewarding one was Best Sound Design. All of this happened like 5 years ago, but thank you for sticking around. I hope you learned a lot from my mistakes. If you want, keep an eye out for my next video before the official launch of Shut Up and Cut. We are launching with a free 1-hour post-production training that walks through everything from hardware and storage to export to distribution to even getting your first gig as an editor. If you're interested, you could sign up for it down below. I am super excited to share this with you guys, and if you have any questions about the course, film school, editing, TikTok, anything, leave them in the comment section down below, and I will see you in the next one.